Let's look at the application of differential calculus in economics. A firm faces the demand schedule Q is equals to 200 minus 4P and cost schedule TC is equals to 0.1 Q raised to the power of 3 minus 0.5 Q raised to the power of 2 plus 2Q plus 8. What price will maximize its profit? You understand? Now, I've solved this question using the first method. This is the second method, okay? Now, let's start by writing out the parameters that we are given in the question. We are given that Q is equals to, the demand schedule is 200 minus 4P, okay? And the cost schedule, which is the total cost, is 0.1 Q raised to the power of 3 minus 0.5 Q raised to the power of 2 plus 2Q plus 8 plus 2Q plus 8, okay? Don't forget that profit is equals to total revenue minus total cost, okay? Pay attention, okay? Profit is equals to total revenue minus total cost, and profit is pi max. Pi is equals to total revenue minus total cost. So now, what I want to determine right now is that I want to determine the quantity. Are you get what I'm saying? I want to determine the profit function. Then I'm going to take the derivative of that profit function. After taking the derivative of that profit function, I'm going to determine the Q, okay? Let us take it step by step. We are given this demand schedule, we are given this cost schedule. We are told to determine the price that will maximize the profit. Now, what I want to do now is that I want to determine the profit function. And profit is what? Total revenue minus total cost. You understand? So, now I need to get the total revenue. And I also need to get the total cost. Though I've been given the total cost, so I only need to get the total revenue. Now, to get the total revenue, don't forget, in our previous class on the first method, we have total revenue is what? Price multiplied by quantity, you understand? And Q has been given as what? 200 minus 4P. So I'm going to make, if you make P the subject of the relation, so if you have not watched the video, the first method, you can check the link in the description of this video to watch the first method, okay? So make P the subject of the relation. P is equals to 200 minus Q all over 4. We have gotten the P. Now, total revenue will be equals to P. P is what? 200 minus 200 minus Q. So I'm going to have 200 minus Q all over 4 multiplied by P. Oh, no, sorry, multiplied by Q, because this is P. Multiplied by Q, okay? The total revenue function now is TR is equals to 200Q minus Q squared all over 4. The total revenue function is this. However, we can still reduce it. So for this, I'm going to have TR is equals to 200Q all over 4 minus Q squared all over 4. So if you divide 200 divided by 4, that is 50. So I'm going to have TR is equals to 50Q. Oh, sorry. Yeah, it is 50. 50Q. Now look at this. There is an invisible one in the front of this Q. You understand? So 1 divided by 4, that is what? 0.25. Okay? That is 0.25. So I'm going to have negative 0.25 Q squared. Do you understand how I got this? There is an invisible one in the front of this Q. Just like 1 times Q squared is what? Q squared. So, but the one is invisible. That one is what I used to divide this for. That is how I got 0.25 Q squared. The total revenue function is equals to 50Q negative 0.25 Q squared. Okay? So now, we have the total cost function and the total revenue function. Don't forget that profit is equals to total revenue minus total cost. So in order to get the profit function, I'm going to subtract the total cost function from the total revenue function. So profit, which is pi, is equals to total revenue function, which is 50Q minus 0.25 Q squared negative all into bracket TC. Total cost function is 0.1 Q raised to the power of 3 minus 0.5 Q raised to the power of 2 plus 2Q plus 8. Do you understand the reason why I put the bracket? The reason why I put this bracket is because this negative is affecting all the values of the total cost. You understand? So I put the bracket so that by the time I open the bracket, this negative will affect all these values. You understand? So the pi, which is the profit function, is equals to 50q negative 0.25q squared. Now negative multiplied by positive 0.1 q raised to the power of 3. That is negative 0.1 q raised to the power of 3. Negative times negative 0.5 q raised to the power of 2. That is positive 0.5 q raised to the power of 2. Negative times positive 2q. That is negative 2q. You understand? Negative times positive 8. That is negative 8. You understand? So now let's proceed. The pi, which is the profit function, is equals to 50. Collect like times. The highest power here is what? The highest power is 3. You understand? So I have negative 0.1 q raised to the power of 3, negative 0.25 q squared, positive 0.5 q squared. Just like you are saying that negative. Let me write. Let me use a good marker here. Look here. Just like you are saying, negative 0.25, positive 0.5. If you punch this in your calculator, you are going to get positive 0.25. So for this, I'm going to have positive 0.25 q raised to the power of 2. You understand? Okay. Do we have? Okay, we have another parameter that we can add. We have 50q and negative 2q. That will give us 50 minus 2. That is 48. So I'm going to have plus 48q negative 8. Do you understand how I got this? Okay. What I did here is that I just collect like terms. Okay. You can see that there are some parameters there that the power of q there is 3. So I had those parameters together, but I only have one. And there are some that the power of q is 2. So I had them together. For example, this and this. Now there are some that the power of q is 1, which is 50q and negative 2q. I had them together and got what? 48q. You understand? So minus 8. Because minus 8 is constant and there is no parameters to add, so I left it there. Okay. Now let's proceed. This is the profit maximization function. This is the profit function. Okay. Now, to determine the price that the firm has to sold, to determine the price that the firm has to sell out its product in order to maximize profit, I have to differentiate this profit function. Okay. I have to differentiate this profit function. So I'm going to have the pi all over the q will be equals to, according to what we did in our last class. Don't forget that according to the rules of differentiation, the power will multiply the coefficient 3 multiplied by negative 0.1 q raised to the power of 3 plus 2 multiplied by 0.5. Don't forget that the power will reduce by 1. Okay, the power will reduce by 1. The power will multiply the coefficient and the power will reduce by 1. So 2 multiplied by 0.25, not 0.5, 0.25 q raised to the power of 2 minus 1 plus because the power of q here is 1, so 1 multiplied by 4.8, 1 multiplied by 48q, not 4.8, 48q raised to the power of 1 minus 1. If you differentiate a constant, you are going to get 0, so I'm not going to write this. Okay, so for this I'm going to have the pi all over the q is equals to 3 multiplied by negative 0.1, that is negative 0.3q, negative 0.3q, and 3 minus 1 is 2, so I'm going to have negative 0.3q squared. Do you understand? Plus, now 2 multiplied by 0.25, that is 0.5q, because 2 minus 1, q raised to the power of 2 minus 1 is q raised to the power of 1, that is q. Okay, and for this I'm going to have 48q plus 48q, because by the time I take the difference of the power, which is 1 minus 1, that is 0. Q raised to the power of 0 is what? 1. You understand? And 1, oh, sorry, this q is not supposed to be there, because look at this. We have 1 and we have 48 q raised to the power of 1 is 1. It's just like saying 1 times 48 times q raised to the power of 0. And according to the laws of indices, the power unity, anything raised to the power of 0 is 1. Okay? So for this, I'm going to have 1 times 48 times 1, which is also the same thing as 48. So that's how I got 48 here, okay? So now let us proceed. Now we have taken the derivative of the profit maximization function. So I'm going to set the derivative of the profit function to 0. You understand? So for this, I'm going to have 0 is equals to negative 0.3q raised to the power of 2 positive 0.5q positive 48. You understand? So now, after setting the profit function to 0, let us rearrange this function. So I'm going to have negative 0.3q squared plus 0.5q plus 48 is equals to 0. Now, since I have negative as the front of the power of q squared, you understand? I have negative as the coefficient of 0.3. I'm going to multiply all this function by negative. You understand? Please, it is very important that you understand this. Since I have a negative sign as the front of the coefficient of q squared, I have to multiply the whole profit function by negative so that I can eliminate this negative sign. You understand? So for this, I'm going to have negative times negative 0.3 squared. So I'm going to have 0.3q squared plus negative times positive 0.5q. I'm going to have negative 0.5q. Negative times positive 48. I'm going to have negative 48. This will be equal to what? 0. Do you understand? Okay, now let us proceed. Look at this. We are going to solve for the value of q. In order to determine the value of q, we are going to make use of the general formula of quadratic equation, also known as the almighty formula, which is x is equals to minus b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. But since I'm not looking for the value of x, I'm looking for the value of q. So I represent x as q. You understand? So q is equals to minus b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Now, a is the coefficient of q squared, and the coefficient of q squared is what? 0.3. So a is 0.3, and b is the coefficient of q. The coefficient of q in this equation is negative 0.5. That is why I have negative 0.5. And c is the constant term. The constant there is negative 48. So that is why I have negative 48 here. So now the next step is that I'm going to substitute all these parameters into this formula to calculate the value of q. So I'm going to have q is equals to negative. Don't forget that there is a negative in the front of b, and b is what? Negative 0.5. So I'm going to have negative 0.5. Okay, 0.5 plus or minus the square root of b squared. B is what? Negative 0.5. So if you square negative 0.5, that is b squared. 4 multiply 4ac. A is 0.3 multiplied by negative 48. Okay, all over 2a. 2 multiplied by 0.3. Okay, so now for this, I'm going to have q is equals to negative 0.5, that is positive 0.5. So I'm going to have 0.5 plus or minus the square root of 0.5 multiplied by 0.5. Please, I want to pay attention to the signs that is at the front of each parameter that we have in this formula. Look at this. We have negative 0.5. That means negative 0.5 times negative 0.5. Do you understand? So that is positive 0.25. 0.25 negative 4 into bracket 0.3 multiplied by negative 48. That will give me negative 14.4. Okay, so this will be negative 14.4. Okay, don't get confused. Okay, now 2 multiplied by 0.3, that is 0.6. So I'm going to have 0.6. Now q will be equals to 0.5 plus or minus the square root of 0.25. Now minus 4 multiplied by minus 14.4, that is 57.6. okay, 57.6. that will be plus 57.6, because minus multiply minus, that is positive, and 4 multiply 14.4, that is 57.6 all over 0.6. Okay, so Q is equals to 0.5 plus or minus the square root of, okay, 0.25 plus 57.6, that is 57.85, square root of 57.85 all over 0.6. Okay, let us proceed. So I'm going to have Q is equals to 0.5 plus or minus, if you take the square root of 57.85, that will give us 7.61. So I'm going to have plus or minus 7.61 all over 0.6. Now I'm going to separate this plus and minus. So I'm going to have Q is equals to 0.5 plus 7.61 all over 0.6, or Q is equals to 0.5 minus 7.61 all over 0.6. 0.5 plus 7.61, that will give me Q is equals to 8.11 divided by 0.6, or Q is equals to negative 7.11 divided by 0.6. Okay, for this I'm going to have Q is equals to 13.51, and or Q is equals to negative 11.8. Now look at this. We are going to choose the positive value of Q like we did in our first example, first solution. You understand? You know, this is another method of solving the question. I've already solved this question before. You understand? So now we are going to choose the positive value of Q, which is 13.51, and substitute it into our price schedule. You understand? We are going to substitute it into our price function. You understand? So let us proceed. So don't forget that in the question we've been given that the demand schedule is 200 minus 4p. Then from this, in this demand schedule, I make the price the subject of the relation, so I get the price function. So when Q is equals to 13.51, which is what we got as the value of Q in our profit maximization function. So for this, I'm going to substitute the value of Q into the price schedule. You understand? So the price that the company will maximize will be 200 minus 13.51 all over 4. So for this, I'm going to have P is equals to 186.49 all over 4. So P is equals to 46.62, which is the same thing as what we got in our previous solution. So you can choose any method that you felt you understand very well. Okay, so please, I did like you to subscribe to this channel if you have not done so, and also like the video, drop comments, tell me how the video is doing. Okay, see you in the next class.